Donald Trump and Xi Jinping just changed the game in Busan. What began as a handshake for peace has turned into a geopolitical earthquake. Tariffs slashed, rare earths unlocked, smiles flashed for the cameras, but behind those smiles was strategy, not sincerity. The 2025 Trump-Xi meeting wasn't just diplomacy. It was a deal that reshuffled power in Asia. It wasn't about peace. It was about power, profits, and positioning. The US got its rare earths, China got its trade relief, and the world got a pause in the storm. But one country got played: India. The so-called strategic partner of the United States just got sidelined. Has this meeting just spelled bad news for India? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. This was the first face-to-face meeting between Trump and Xi since Trump's dramatic return to the White House, and it happened in Busan, South Korea, on the sidelines of the 2025 APEC summit. Behind closed doors, the world's two biggest rivals found common ground on rare earths, fentanyl, trade tariffs, and soybeans. Trump called it a 12 out of 10 meeting. Xi called it a new chapter. But what chapter is this really? Reconciliation or realignment? Because if America's new China truce reshapes Asia's power balance, is India now the collateral damage of Trump's China-first diplomacy? For over a decade, the US-China rivalry was the defining contest of our age. Tariffs, sanctions, tech wars, and geopolitical shadow boxing. But in Busan, that rivalry hit pause. Trump and Xi signed what many call a tactical truce, a year-long rare earths deal, a rollback of tariffs, and mutual promises to restore stability. The message was clear: both nations needed breathing space. But for India, that space just shrank. Trump reduced tariffs on Chinese imports from 57% to 47%, giving Beijing the kind of economic oxygen it desperately needed. In return, China agreed to resume rare earth exports, the lifeblood of technology, defense, and renewable energy sectors. That one-year suspension of export restrictions was no small favor. It was a masterstroke of leverage.
So the tone of the meeting seemed very friendly. There seemed to be progress on issues like fentanyl, on soybeans. There's been talk about moving forward on the TikTok deal, as well as the sale of advanced semiconductors. But whether they are the most advanced Blackwell chips from NVIDIA, that's not entirely clear. I wouldn't say it's a tactical pause. As you rightly point out, US-PRC relations since the mid-2010s has been going up. It has its ups and downs. Right now, things seem to be on a somewhat positive track. Whether that will change in the near future, that's anybody's guess, right? But this is the pattern that we've seen in US-China relations. They seem like they have an agreement, they seem like they have a framework agreement, and then one side or the other changes their mind, and we go back to more acrimony.
And who could pay the price? India. Because while China got tariff relief, India's exports to the US still face barriers up to 50%. The math is brutal. China becomes cheaper, faster, and more competitive, while India stays stuck in the tariff trap. Rare earths are not rare, but China's control over them is.
Over the latter part of the 20th century and into the early part of the 21st century, production left the West and concentrated in China. Over the past decade, there have been extensive concerted efforts to resume rare earth mining and processing in the US, in Canada, Australia, and many other places besides. It has proven challenging, right? Not least because rare earth mining and processing, or rare earth processing, is energy intensive, environmentally intensive, and when you're trying to resume an industrial process in a place that hasn't had it for 20 or 30 years, there's a lot of catch-up that needs to happen, right? A lot of the expertise for refining and processing is currently in China, and that makes sense because most of the value-added processing has been happening in China for the past few decades.
Over 80% of the world's refined rare earth materials used in fighter jets, semiconductors, EV batteries, and smartphones come from China. That's Beijing's chokehold over the modern economy. When Trump cut tariffs and reopened that supply chain, the US tech and defense sectors breathed a sigh of relief. Wall Street celebrated, but Delhi had every reason to frown. Because rare earth access isn't just about minerals, it's about control. This deal means China gets to keep its monopoly and dictate global pricing. The US just validated that monopoly for another year. For India, which is struggling to build its own rare earth capacity and attract Western investment in critical minerals, the Busan deal is a setback. This wasn't cooperation, it was capitulation dressed as diplomacy, and it undercut India's emerging role as a trusted alternative to China in global supply chains.
Just as there are deep structural differences between the US and China that are going to impede any major attempt at a reset, I believe there are structural convergences between the US and India that, despite the current set of tensions that the US and India have been navigating, that fundamentally, on an economic, on a technology, on a strategic and security basis, there's a lot more that brings the United States and India together than that divides us. And my hope is that if we can manage the short-term challenges, that we can continue to, chart a path towards deeper long-term convergence.
For years, India was told it was central to the US's Indo-Pacific strategy, the linchpin of the Quad, the democratic counterweight to China. But the Busan meeting told a different story. While Trump praised Xi as a tremendous leader, India wasn't even in the room, not mentioned, not consulted, not prioritized.
Look, I understand the consternation that our friends and counterparts around the world have felt with respect to the trade negotiations. We lived previously in a world where we used the World Trade Organization to create perhaps a global tariff regime. The Trump administration has felt like that was not to America's advantage, and has sought bilateral understandings on a country-by-country basis, and has sought to what it believes is kind of right-size the trade relationship in America's favor. So I understand the concerns that perhaps our counterparts are facing, but from the president's perspective, he believes he is rebalancing trade. I'm hopeful that the U.S.-India trade discussions and negotiations are going to bear fruit in a really breakthrough trade agreement that will increase trade between our two nations substantially and bring benefit in both directions.
The results are visible in four ways. First, tariff reduction gives China a clear head start in exports to the U.S. market. Indian exporters, already squeezed by logistics costs and currency fluctuations, now face a 3 to 5% higher effective tariff gap. In sectors like textiles, pharma, auto parts, and electronics, this gap could mean billions in lost revenue. China wins back American market share. India loses it. Secondly, by meeting Xi first and sealing a deal, Trump sent a brutal message. Beijing still matters more than Delhi. The US will engage China one-on-one, not through coalitions like the Quad. India's strategic relevance suddenly looks less urgent. Thirdly, at the APEC summit, where South Korea, Japan, and the ASEAN bloc were all represented, India wasn't even part of the conversation. Busan was multilateral, but the power play was bilateral. That's the new order. Two superpowers negotiating the rules while the rest, including India, adapt. Fourthly, the Busan talks ignored Taiwan, the South China Sea, and even China's border provocations. none of India's security concerns were on the agenda. The silence spoke volumes. Why was Trump in such a hurry to make peace with China but not with India? Simple: political urgency. The US-China trade war had backfired on American businesses. Tariff hurt US farmers, manufacturers, and tech firms, from soybean producers in Iowa to microchip giants in California. The rare earth squeeze was threatening the US defense industry itself. China knew it. She leveraged it. Trump needed a win, and fast. Rare earths and soybeans offered that win. By slashing tariffs and reopening exports, Trump calmed markets and pleased his voter base ahead of key domestic economic milestones. India, on the other hand, wasn't an immediate political priority. No US farm votes depend on Indian trade. No American factories rely on Indian minerals. India offers long-term promise, not short-term political payoff. And Trump is a man of immediacy. Busan was about optics and outcomes, not ideals. When Trump called the meeting a 12 out of 10, it wasn't just flattery, it was branding.
I thought it was an amazing meeting. He's a great leader of a very powerful, very strong country, China. And what can I say? It was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made. There wasn't too much left out there. And we've come to conclusion on many very important points, and we'll be handing that to you in a little while. You know, we're having a lot of different things, many of them very important. We're in agreement on so many elements. Large amounts, tremendous amounts of the soybeans and other farm products are going to be purchased immediately, starting immediately. If you notice, President Xi authorized yesterday for China to start, did you know that, right? To start buying in very large quantities of soybeans and other things, which I appreciated. That was a very nice gesture.
He needed to project control. After years of calling China a thief and manipulator, Trump turned around to praise Xi as a great leader. Why? Because this deal lets Trump say he tamed the dragon not through war but through winning negotiations. For Xi, it was perfect theater. China looked magnanimous, reasonable, even cooperative. The rare earth deal made Beijing look like the responsible superpower restoring balance. And for India, it was a warning. Washington's loyalty is transactional. If a deal with China serves US interests today, India's friendship can wait until tomorrow.
Under our joint guidance, China-US relations have remained stable on the whole. Given our different national conditions, we do not always see eye to eye with each other. And it is normal for the two leading economies of the world to have frictions now and then. And in the face of winds, waves, and challenges, you and I, at the helm of China-US relations, should stay the right course and ensure the steady sailing forward of the giant ship of China-US relations. I always believe that China's development goes hand in hand with your vision to make America great again. Our two countries are fully able to help each other succeed and prosper together. Over the years, I have stated in public many times that China and the United States should be partners and friends. This is what history has taught us and what reality demands. A few days ago, in the latest round of consultation, our two economic and trade teams reached basic consensus on addressing our respective major concerns and made encouraging progress. This provided the necessary conditions for our meeting today. Mr. President, I am ready to continue working with you to build a solid foundation for China-US relations and create a sound atmosphere for the development of both countries.
At face value, The rare earth truce stabilizes markets, but in reality, it strengthens China's leverage. China suspends restrictions for 1 year, not out of goodwill, but to buy time. During that year, it consolidates mining control, expands refining infrastructure, and tightens export oversight mechanisms. Meanwhile, the US grows more dependent again. India, which was positioning itself as the next big supplier through partnerships with Australia and Japan, now finds those plans delayed. Western investments in Indian rare earth exploration may slow down because the crisis they were meant to solve just got postponed. Busan didn't break the monopoly, it legitimized it. Another part of the deal was fentanyl, a crisis that has devastated America. Trump agreed to reduce tariffs on fentanyl-related products from 20% to 10%, and China promised to tighten regulation. It was hailed as a humanitarian success, but this too had economic undertones. Lower fentanyl tariffs mean renewed trade in pharmaceuticals and chemicals, sectors where China dominates global production. India, the pharmacy of the world, suddenly faces a competitor empowered by lower US tariffs and easier market access. Trump's anti-drug diplomacy, while politically powerful, undercut one of India's strongest export sectors. The Busan summit wasn't just about economics, it was about exclusion. By freezing out India from the major power dialogue, Trump and Xi signaled a return to bipolar geopolitics. The world divided between Washington and Beijing. That's the model India has always rejected, a world where middle powers don't matter. The timing couldn't be worse. India's tensions with China persist at the border. The Quad is faltering under American disinterest, and Trump's praise for Xi echoes louder than any statement of support for India's security or sovereignty. The message is unmistakable. Trump's America First no longer aligns with India's strategic autonomy. India's economic hit is measurable. Its strategic loss is psychological. When Trump and Xi shake hands, the world watches. Markets react. Investors shift. Global supply chains recalibrate. And in that shift, India risks being seen as a secondary partner, a useful ally, but not an indispensable one. Diplomatically, India loses visibility. Economically, it loses competitiveness. Strategically, it loses leverage. Busan was more than a summit. It was a signal that the next phase of US-China relations will be decided without India's input. Trump's urgency with China compared to his patience or neglect with India can be summed up in 4 truths. The US-China trade volume dwarfs US-India trade. Fixing China yields faster domestic gains. US industries depend on Chinese rare earths. India can't replace that yet. A deal with Xi makes headlines. A deal with Modi makes policy. Trump prefers headlines. China had bargaining chips, rare earths, soybeans, fentanyl control. India had principles. In Trump's world, leverage beats loyalty. That's why the Busan meeting was not just about diplomacy, it was about desperation. For New Delhi, this is a wake-up call. The US has shown that its alliances are transactional. China has shown that its economic weapons are still powerful. The question is, how does India respond? It has 2 options. Chase trade deals with Washington on American terms or double down on strategic autonomy by diversifying partnerships. Europe, ASEAN, Africa, and the Global South. India must now turn marginalization into momentum, accelerating domestic rare earth production, building alternative value chains, and reclaiming its role as a rules shaper, not a rule taker. Because Busan didn't just expose the cracks in US-India ties, it exposed the illusion of equal partnership. The Trump-Xi Busan meeting may have calmed the markets, but it unsettled the balance of power. Tariffs down, rare earths flowing, smiles all around. But beneath the optics lies a harsh truth. The US just gave China breathing space and took it from India. The 12 out of 10 handshake between Trump and Xi wasn't a triumph of diplomacy. It was a reminder of hierarchy. In the great game of global politics, India's friendship is valuable, but China's leverage is irresistible. The Busan summit will be remembered as the day Trump hit reset with Xi and left India hanging on hold. While Trump and Xi make peace in Busan, who will stand up, or how will India stand tall in the new world order they just built? Thank you for watching Statecraft.